He turned water into wine, I turned whiskey into songs. Too many second chances, too many too far gones. Gave me grace along the way, took my heart and led me home. Don't you see? It's a God thing for me. Now I write songs about the heartland. My heartland's in Tennessee.
Welcome to the Heartland Journal podcast with Steve Abramowitz, editor-in-chief of HeartlandJournal.com.
Welcome to our very special Heartland Journal Summer Series, where we have dug deep into the archives and unearthed some of our most popular and even controversial shows of the past, many that haven't seen the light of day in years. We hope you enjoy what we have in store for you. Until I return to my post as host of the Heartland Journal podcast, this is Steve Abramowitz wishing you a safe and sane summer. And as always, glory to God. Howdy, y'all. Welcome back. I'm Steve Abramowitz, and this is the Heartland Journal podcast. On this show, we are focused on our nation today, with always an interesting person making a positive change in our community and lovers of truth. Welcome to our People in the News episode, where I interview people who are making an impact and are lovers of truth. Today we are talking with Mrs. Landon Starbuck, national thought leader, speaker, writer, and advocate countering human trafficking, specifically child trafficking and child exploitation. Landon is the founder and president of Freedom Forever, a nonprofit dedicated to protecting children from trafficking and exploitation and preserving freedom for all. Landon left the music industry as a Billboard charting singer-songwriter after uncovering the exploitation within the entertainment industry. She continued making music as an independent artist and donating 100% of her sales to fight modern-day slavery. Now she dedicates her life to advocacy, combating the trafficking and exploitation of the most vulnerable. She inspires young women to find their true identity and power through purpose, not sexualization. Her heart for service, working with survivors and prevention education led her to start her own nonprofit, where she brings to light many aspects of exploitation that are hidden. In addition to running her nonprofit, Landon serves on the board of Operation Light Shine, an anti-trafficking organization in Tennessee that works with law enforcement to rescue kids from trafficking and exploitation. She also serves on the Advisory Council for Lynn's Warriors in New York, is a partner with the National Center of Sexual Exploitation, and a member of the Coalition to End Sexual Exploitation. In 2021, she directed the largest coalition mobilizing activists across the country in a rally and march at our southern border to expose the record level of human trafficking and exploitation occurring there. Tucker Carlson, Breitbart, OANN, and more cover the unprecedented demonstrations Landon led at the border. Landon has led counter-trafficking activists across the country who understand the importance of preserving freedom for all in the fight against modern-day slavery. Landon is unique in her authentic, common-sense approach to education and prevention in combating the demand within our culture via the freedom model, Freedom Forever. While rescuing kids is good and necessary, it doesn't address or solve the epidemic of child sexual abuse, exploitation, and trafficking. We must adjust the growing demand. Our number one mission is to identify the vulnerabilities and access points so we can intervene before more kids are groomed, abused, and exploited. When we succeed, it means that there are less children who need to be rescued. Filling this critical gap in child safety is why Freedom Forever was born. Outside of her advocacy work, Landon loves being a wife to her husband, Robby, and mother to her 3 miracle children at her home in Franklin, Tennessee, Scarlett, Cosette, and Liam. I have a Liam. Her first book, Freedom Warrior, was published in late 2022. Landon, thank you for coming on here today. How are you?
Thank you so much for having me, Steve. I'm doing okay. I'm sad, to hear about these, senseless shootings in my hometown. So, it's kind of a somber, day for a lot of us.
Absolutely, yes. And what a day to have you on here, since this is your primary focus, these kids who act out in ways that we just can't understand, can we? Tell us your impression of what just happened yesterday in Nashville with the shooting.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a senseless tragedy. And I believe that all of these senseless tragedies with these school shootings are entirely preventable. And it really starts with the root causes of these behaviors, and the epidemic of mental health crisis in our country that is not being addressed. And then the different ideas of how we address that couldn't be more polar opposite. And there's so many vulnerable children led down this dangerous path of gender ideology, but not just that, even psychotropic medications and with black box warnings, all of these things. And there's just a lack of really effective mental health care for children. And I think that you compound that with the other issues with the lockdowns and the attack on their identity and this normalization of social media. You just have a really bad storm brewing that exacerbates these mental health conditions. So it's so sad that tragedies like this keep occurring. But until these issues are addressed, I fear that more children, will commit atrocities or be victimized by them.
Now, you made national news not long ago by standing there at the Capitol, not far from that school that was in the news again yesterday, and took a stand against what Matt Walsh was advocating for with a I'll let you define it, but the rally was definitely a testament to a different appreciation of the transgender youth and what they're going through. How did you come to get involved in that? What was your response to that? How did you feel it went? And what's been the follow-up to that?
Sure. Well, I initially broke the story about Vanderbilt's pediatric transgender clinic with my op-ed in the Federalist. And that was a result of a long investigation that Freedom Forever, my nonprofit, was involved with, and that we were able to uncover some of the really disturbing things that we put in that article. And then from there, Matt, with his amazing big platform, was able to utilize his team to investigate those surgeries further. And what he was able to bring to the surface really was that spark we needed to get more involvement and legislative action. And so that rally was just the pinnacle of a lot of that movement that was happening in the activism and then writing and education about these issues. So it was just a really wonderful thing that happened there to get us to the point where we had these legislative wins to ban child mutilation in the state of Tennessee. But also, the other aspect of that at the same time we were fighting for was the sexualization of children and this new disgusting trend of adult sexually explicit shows popping up all over our state. So we're really happy that we were able to get 2 wins to protect children in our state.
And so the legislature that's been in session now for several weeks has been actively pursuing things that you were able to bring to the forefront, you and your husband actually. How are you feeling about the politicians in Nashville representing the citizens and what they've been able to accomplish on issues you care about?
Well, I mean, we're very happy that, we're being heard on these issues. There's so many issues that so many people care about that are going on. But I'm really happy to see that there seems to be a synergy happening where they're definitely listening to, the activists and the people representing the people that, everyday people like us, that are parents and that don't want Tennessee to turn into California. So I think that everything that's happened in these past few years maybe rattled people awake to understand that it's not hyperbole when we say that this, these agendas are going to come to Tennessee. In fact, many of them are already here. And so there is a awakening to respond to these issues with a little bit more urgency than maybe there was a few years back. So I'm just really happy that that is the place that we seem to be at. And, there's some stragglers still, but, we're working on those people and, we're just going to keep charging forward on the issues however we best can.
Mm-hmm. And of course, the folks on the left take advantage of a tragedy like this and want to help make their political points as well. And so what I'm looking at is things like there was on the agenda to reduce the permitless carry age to 18. Obviously, that's going to be a harder sell now when a 26-year-old walks into a school and shoots the windows out and is able to access these weapons. And then, of course, the drag shows, the age inappropriate, or as I like to say, including library books and stuff in the curriculum with CRT that we're dealing with in Williamson County, where you live, where I live. Are you seeing momentum stopped towards what we're trying to accomplish because of the headline news and knee-jerk reactions.
Well, I don't necessarily see it being stopped. I see different challenges. I mean, obviously, those are two different issues. I'm sure your audience is well aware of the whole gun debate, and that reducing that age would in no way have stopped this shooting or many others, because the access is not the key issue here. It's the mental health component. Anybody, I would argue anybody that is on these type of medications, maybe there should be a pause given to somebody to have access to guns. So I think that's about the only conversation I would enter, as far as you can't have on one hand a strict standard for people who are, suffering from severe mental health, issues, mental illness, and then on the other hand say it's fine for somebody who, for especially a female being put on testosterone, that there wouldn't be any risks with that person obtaining a gun. They would be in their right mind. But again, it's too early to tell. I don't know if she was on T. I don't know how long she was on it. I don't know if she was on it at all. I would assume she was, but again, it's all speculation until we find the facts on this particular case. But just in general, I mean, you look at all of the cities in America that have the strictest gun laws possible. They also have one thing in common: the worst violent offenses. So that fact right there throws that argument out of the water, and there really is no basis for that argument. It's just a emotional knee-jerk reaction to try to have a sense of control over this problem. And instead of us being able to come together and say, we want this to stop, let's talk about common sense measures. Why would we not want to protect children more than we do our money at the banks? Why would we not want an armed guard at every school? These aren't even politics. These are just common sense measures that we would do to protect our most valuable, things close to our heart, which is our children. So it's just difficult. Everything's so polarized. We can't really have that conversation. It goes straight to the confiscation, essentially, argument, which knows no end. I mean, if it's not based in any logic, taking guns away or reducing the age, it really is the same argument, and it's total confiscation. That's where you end up.
Yeah, that's certainly what they want. Within minutes, they were on the news, Biden all the way down, saying that it's the gun, not taking into account anything about the surgeries, the painkillers, the psychotic drugs that they're put on, any of the mind-altering effects. But on the positive note, it took Metro all of 11 minutes to neutralize the shooter. So that's a good thing. But yes, we do definitely need to get to the root of it, and it's not the gun, because they're everywhere. And as we all know, the complaint of background checks, we need universal background checks. Criminals don't go get background checks. They get their guns in an entirely different way, and there's really no stopping that. Just out of curiosity, there's a congressman in Kentucky, Massey. We all know him. In August, he was talking about a bill that 60 Republicans voted no on, that would have ended the U.S. Department of Education's control over local and elementary and secondary schools. This just happened. Not very Republican. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I was just in Massey's office last week talking to him. So, I like a lot of the things he does and stands for. I mean, I believe that the Department of Education should be abolished in total. But I'm also, practical and understanding how these things work. And sometimes perfect can be the enemy of good. And so the next logical step would really be to advocate for school choice without strings attached. And so that's really the wavelength I'm at. I'm not familiar with the specific bill he was working on. We didn't talk about that in our meeting, but that's really where I feel the education, the next wins for us are, on that path. But I mean, it's pretty clear that the Department of Education is corrupt. It's been taken over and infiltrated by far left ideologues. It's been weaponized. It's introducing the most Marxian, harmful psychological crackpot science, gender ideology, radical sexual ideologies to our kids. So, I mean, there's really no reason to keep it at this point. And I'm just a big advocate overall of less government, especially when it comes to educating our children.
Yeah. And I literally sat in on a seminar held by Moms for Liberty in Williamson County last week, and had to actually walk out as they read the graphic novels and the what they consider young adult novels that are being held in the libraries and taught in school. And I'm not that thin-skinned. It was just, I did not need to hear what I was hearing. It was a rough go. Have you ever looked into that and see what the kids, not only in the libraries and in the curriculums, but in their devices that they are
Yes.
forced to use just to go to class? And of course, there's the clickbait that YouTube and Facebook are there for, and those aren't filtered.
Yes. I mean, I've literally been doing this work for 8 years, even going back to California. And this is something, my nonprofit also has a, list of the books that are most problematic on our website, freedomforever.us. I've exposed a lot of these books over the past, years, highlighting this problem, not just in my state, but nationally, and was met with all sorts of vitriol and denial and all of that. So, this has been an ongoing thing, a battle that we've had. And I really hope that, I think we're close. I may not get done this session, but I think we're close to getting a hold of this problem in our state. The mechanisms that we use to get these books out might look a little different. I know that I'm about to expose Williamson County Library a lot of the books that I found and my team found that haven't been exposed yet, and it's pretty horrific. So that's something to look forward to. Not that it's happy or exciting, but it's important for the community to be aware that is happening. And I know that some conservative organizations still, hold events there or go there or take their children there. And I just don't believe it's a safe place for children. I don't believe the people that are operating have the children's best interests and safety in mind.
Yeah, and I'm very interested in who you find as your opposition, because as parents, you and I both probably agree, and you and I are both from California, and we both decided that was not the place to raise our kids because we saw that. And then I had to make a second decision about Washington State, where they will obviously use their children in a whole different way than you and I were raised to believe children should be raised. And it's a very violent, far left Marxist group, in my opinion. I mean, if you look at their T-shirts, the lieutenant governor of Minnesota has a knife with blood dripping, talking about trans rights or human rights, and this, very, very dark, sadistic, murderistic culture that they're generating. Now, I just pulled up this article for you. State-sanctioned kidnapping. California bill would give therapists power to take children over 12 from parents without accusation, evidence, or trial. When you come up, Landon, into your objections, when you're standing in the podium at the Capitol and you hear the people off to the right yelling and screaming at you, what are their arguments that even come close to being realistic that would allow a state like California to sanction kidnapping?
There are no arguments for this. It's just absolute vitriol and chaos. Chloe Cole, brave detransitioner, was boldly speaking up on that platform, and she was screamed at "F you, fascist" by these crowd of people that are deranged and disturbed. And I think that says everything, that if you're just a bystander watching the dynamic of having people advocate for a particular position or cause, and the other side is just screaming vitriol at literally a victim of medical exploitation sharing her experience. I mean, I think that says everything. But it's something that we have to continue fighting for. The medical exploitation of children. I mean, this goes back a while, and this is something I've warned about. The more power the state has, particularly in education spaces, with these therapists, these counselors coming into the schools, that is being weaponized further in conjunction with this gender ideology, these goals, these social engineering goals. And the more power that they have to redefine these two terms, safe and abuse, that means that you don't even have to change the laws. That if you can just redefine terms like that, safe and abuse, you can take children legal kidnapping from their families. And so they determine and they teach that safety is really a child's right to be affirmed as their gender or to even explore themselves sexually, that is a right to them. And so they're teaching that, and they're teaching the kids that, indoctrinating them with that, where the children are then dividing themselves against the parents, and in some cases choosing that path and hoping that they'll be removed from their parents. It's very evil. And then the term that they redefine too is abuse. And so, we grew up thinking abuse would be something like sexual abuse or a cigarette burn or something to that effect, real abuse. And they've redefined abuse to mean not affirming a trans identity or any divergent identity other than cis heteronormative. So all you have to do is re-educate, disinform a generation of children, and you can implode the family, divide the family against itself, and empower the state at the same time without changing a single law. And this is what we've been warning about. This is what's happened in California. And it started really with the mature minor doctrine. And then I exposed the mature minor doctrine under the auspices of medical health care, which was what was happening at Vanderbilt University, their healthcare system. And then we're seeing this play out across our country. So they're getting it in via education or healthcare systems without really having to change laws. But now they're so egregious, they're actually trying to change laws, like in Minnesota right now, trying to lock up parents who refuse to affirm their children and criminalizing that. So we're in a war on children.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no other way to put it.
Yeah. And Washington State, where Steve is sitting, they have the same thing on the docket. So that would be 3 states out of the 50 already going down the path. Well, we do know from yesterday's news that the individual was a transgender person, and this is it's a precursor to Our Right DC, which is a group that has called for April 1st to be Trans Day of Vengeance at the Supreme Court of the United States. They're saying Hail may have been prompted by Tennessee laws against drag, etc., which likely excuse whatever. What I did notice was in the news last night, within minutes of the shooting, while people were gathering in the streets, there was a lady who came from, she said, Ohio on vacation, but also happened to be an anti-gun lobbyist. Do you think some of these are not organic protests? They're not what we would hope would be just individuals with strong, passionate opinions, that they're actually maybe paid activists that are causing havoc and chaos and now murder in the streets?
Sure. I mean, I can't speak to that individual one. I'm not aware of that. I'm aware of the, week of vengeance that I've seen going around on social media, which may have contributed to this atrocity. But, I've noticed that different protests, even on our side, they've had staged people come in posing as Nazis, posing as fascist, wearing white supremacy, messaging or whatnot. Nobody knows who these people are. Not one person. And we have people on the ground everywhere that work with us, that we're allied with, that are on the ground documenting. So we have our ear on the ground, like everywhere, anything that something's happening. And not one person seems to know who these people are. Now, at the End Child Mutilation rally with Matt Walsh, there were some agitators that appeared to be professionally paid agitators. And one of my friends actually went up and spoke with them, and they said that they were brought in on a bus and they were paid, I don't know how much an hour to be there. So we know that these tactics are deployed across, our country to, professional agitators to inflame causes and even to change the optics so the media can weaponize what happens.
Boy, did they! Within minutes, they were doing that last night,
and they do it in every instance and opportunity they can get. I mean, when they did it with the bill that the adult entertainment bill, and they actually interviewed me and said, one person and hundreds were gathered, one person in opposition, hundreds gathered. They mentioned it so many times. It's to deceive people, but I think people are getting smarter to what's happening, and I don't think as many people are buying it as before.
And, in the mainstream media, as well as the culture, we have Madonna now, who used to be the biggest hit of all time. Now I think she's completely lost it, but she's going to dedicate her profits on her celebration tour, with proceeds going to trans right organizations. So we'll see if she actually pulls that off. I remember Farm Aid, where they didn't give any of the money to the farmers, but we'll see if Madonna pulls that off. Franklin, Tennessee is going to have a gay pride parade this week. There's a lot of people up in arms. They don't want it. They're complaining. Do you have any focus on that? Are you paying attention to that?
Yeah. So I exposed the last, pride event at Harlansdale Farm, where they had a drag performer performing in front of children that were there. It was an all ages event that was sexually explicit in nature. I exposed that, and I'm glad that now we have people that are aware of it pushing back. And I don't think that they're going to be granted that permit to come back to Harlansdale Farm because, they violated that public trust and safety. So I think there's going to be a cooling off period for them to maybe reevaluate what their priorities are and, what kind of entertainment they're, going to subject children to, or whether they want to do all ages events. Many people are unaware. They've also sponsored, Franklin Pride has also sponsored all age drag shows at the Hyatt in Franklin. I don't know if they still are doing them, but they were doing them for, I think, over a year. And those also contain sexually explicit performances. I exposed that as well. So, I think the more people that are starting to pay attention that this is in our community, it's in red states, it's in red cities, it's in the most conservative Bible Belt cities in America. Until people start really getting involved and paying attention, we won't be able to take those actions like that we're finally taking now to stop it and to say, hey, you know what, you can do your event. You cannot expose children to sexual content. If you want to do adult drag shows, great. Don't do them on the city's dime or, exposing children to it. That's not what we're here for. And so I think that I'm really proud that people are starting to get involved and stand up in our city.
Yeah, and sure would be nice to see the Labor and Industry Board go after the liquor license of these places that are willing to even do this, as opposed to just trying to go after the culture and say, we're going to ban drag shows to age inappropriate children. That makes sense, but then the left has the opportunity to say, oh my gosh, you're banning books, you're Nazis or whatever, when, well, we just want an NC-17 rating on this, just like it would be at the movies. Now, Landon, you and your husband, Robby, you definitely seem to have your hearts in the right place. You came from California, which is obviously the epicenter of a lot of this liberal woke agenda that we just don't agree with. Let's just call it communism or Marxism. You came here to Tennessee thinking it was the reddest of the red states, just like I did, just like my family did, to be able to put them in schools and feel safer. You've obviously uncovered it's a place just like all the other 49 states that has its issues when it comes to these things. Your husband's campaign for Congress, obviously, like I said, his platform was what I believe came from the right place, a conservative-minded, constitutional Republican, the old-fashioned kind. How did that race and the rules that they changed after 250 years of existence of a, or whatever it is, of a state, how did it affect you and your family in terms of appreciation for the system? You were working within the system. The system said, sorry, you can't be here, and now no one else can be here for 5 years until they've been here 5 years and run for Congress. How did it affect you guys?
Well, it actually wasn't over how long he was here. There's a lot of misunderstanding about that. He met all of the threshold that was required by the Republican Party to run. They just decided at the very end that they didn't want him to be their standard bearer. So they used some arbitrary rules that they never cited that said they didn't want him to be the standard bearer. It's that simple. They're a private club. It's like a country club. You're in a part of it. You don't get to call the shot. So I think that there is a huge awakening in the Republican Party and in conservative movement that didn't understand that, including us. We thought this was America, a free country, and that you can be one of the most effective right-wing conservative Republican activists endorsed out the wazoo by Senator Rand Paul, some of our strongest freedom fighters, Candace Owens, Charlie Kirk, but they don't want you to be the standard bearer. Why is that? Yet look at our governor, Lieutenant Governor McNally can private or openly message underage men and sexually explicit positions, and that's an okay standard. I think there's two things that happen: is the hypocrisy was revealed, the hidden agendas, and good old boy politics, if you want to call it. I'm not really sure what it is, but I think people needed to see it. And so I think that, God used us in that to awaken people to how things have been working and what is broken and what needs to be fixed. I don't think that this will happen again. I think that this shook the very fabric of how the status quo have been operating in Tennessee. And now enough people are awake and aware of it, and they don't like it. And this is un-American. And so I think that people want to decide who their standard bearer is and not let a private group of people in secret, which also is a violation of the Open Meetings Act in the state of Tennessee, go and decide who they want to be their standard bearer. So again, somebody can run again for a year successfully, they poll top in the polls, and then they decide to remove him. I think that says a lot.
Yeah. And at the same time, Morgan Ortegas, same type of thing. And now the rules have changed for everybody else. And then this week was supposed to be the convention for Williamson County. So we go from the state that we're talking about now to just our little county where Franklin is. And they're changing the rules as well, where you have to pay actual money, almost a poll tax, to have been in the Republican Party, just the party, and go back 3 years and say, give us your voting record. So for me, coming from out of state, I'm supposed to go get my voting record from a crazy state and show everybody, here's what I did in the past so I can do this in the future here. That's holding you back. What do you think of that? Does it make you just want to stay in the activist role and less into the elected official role, or how are you guys adjusting to that?
Well, I mean, wherever God leads us, that's where we'll go. I mean, that's the bottom line. We don't have political aspirations. We don't have activist aspirations. We just have like godly aspirations of saving our children, saving our country, and following that, God's lead on how we're supposed to be of service. So whatever that looks like, that's what we're going to do. But I know there's good people in the GOP. There's good people taking important positions. And so you can't abandon the entire GOP. We live in a two-tier system. That is, sadly, that's the way it is. And so there's certain, ways that we have to operate by. So I think that there's a lot of work to be done to make sure that our GOP is truly reflective of the people, of who we are and what we want in our state. And until that happens, it might not make sense for a candidate like Robby to throw his hat in the ring and, put our family through that whole thing again, if that work hasn't been done. But I think it's just a matter of time, and it's a matter of demand, of looking at what other candidates are and who they are and what they're doing, and deciding then, how Robby could be best of service, how I could be best of service, and deciding then.
And you both were quite acclaimed artists in your own right back in your old careers. He has many movie credits to his, and you have singing, songwriting. Do you have any of that going on into the future, or are you now full-time activists?
Yeah, I mean, we moved here thinking that we would be making more conservative entertainment and music, and that wasn't the case, because when we realized that everything was already here and infiltrating here, we realized that we had to stand up, and that just turned into a full-time activism. And not that it's a job, it definitely doesn't pay, but into, our time, how we spent our time, realizing the importance of this fighting these battles now. So, I think that we'll always be doing that. I have always been a musician. I love music. I will never go back to the industry, but I will continue making music whenever I do have time. I don't know when that will be, but I definitely will at some point make music again.
And I said in your bio, your background was with children trafficking, got started in your career in Hollywood because it is obviously such a terrible thing. And we know that the Super Bowl is like the number one day or whatnot. But did you ever come across Chris Cornell from Seattle in your workings and know anything about his advocacy for anti-child trafficking?
No, I never knew Chris. I've known people he's played with, and I know that he was working on a documentary, and so was Chester Bennington from Lincoln Park, right, exposing some of the trafficking happening in Haiti. But I don't know anything beyond that. I think they were both very much aware of the same things I was aware of when I realized that how children are exploited at very young ages, how there's a very open sexual quid pro quo system for women, how pedophilia is very prevalent and tolerated and hidden. In some cases, it's not even hidden. And so I think they were very much aware of it, which is maybe why they decided to expose what they did before their tragic end of life.
Yeah, and I was wondering if you had taken over where they had, and I was very curious if you had any information, because we all know about the Epstein situation, and we know that his Ghislaine Maxwell is in prison, so behind bars, but do you think anyone filled that vacuum? And then on that note, Williamson County has a trafficking problem too, and I wondered if you had any information on that.
I don't think anybody is taking over that space, sadly, because of the people involved. The risk is really great. I'm not saying I wouldn't take that risk. I just don't have access to, on a journalistic level, some of the documents needed to, perhaps even try to get some accountability there. I know that there are journalists who do have that, those articles that they could be using, and they're choosing not to. And I think that that's what I would say is think about why they wouldn't choose to put those documents out, even knowing that they have that information. Perhaps it goes back to how some of our whistleblowers have been treated. I think that there's a lot of fear around what will happen to people, their lives, their careers, all of those things. Sorry, what was the other question that you asked me about?
Well, it was kind of threefold. Will anyone take up the mantle of the story that I know that some of your research does, but not all the way. And then, of course, with the vacuum that was created without an Epstein and without a Ghislaine Maxwell, is anyone else? I don't think the market went away. You've talked very dramatically that the market is growing. Who took that spot?
The demand is so great. I mean, some people believe that it's just the elites, and it's really not. It's fathers on our street, mothers on our street. Familial trafficking is at an all-time high. So child exploitation has never been greater. The threat to children has never been greater. I mean, we have the most reports ever of suspected child exploitation reported to NCMEC, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, 32 million reports. Wow. That's a lot in 1 year. And so, this is an epidemic. I've been talking about this. I did a TED Talk that was banned about this. And so, I'm doing what I can to expose the demand, but also really highlight the behaviors and activism. I'm not a raid and rescue model. I love that people rescue children, but it's not a solution to the problem. And until we get to the root of the behavior of what's driving the demand, and this is what I talk about a lot in my speeches and in my advocacy work, of the things that even we contribute to unknowingly, and the environments that we subject our children to that render them more vulnerable for exploitation and participating in it, we won't see a reduction in that demand. And that's why the drag issue was a particular concern to me, is because if you're normalizing this behavior in front of children, children emulate what they see. And then months later, it happened exactly what I predicted would. We start seeing children sexually exploited on stage for money as adult men throw money and clap and cheer, and children are then legally being exploited, and nobody's doing anything about it because the culture has normalized it. And so we're seeing this on just a vast scale. I mean, Cuties on Netflix, what Disney is doing to children. It is literally everywhere. And so the solutions and the activism needed aren't just to change laws, which we're definitely spearheading and putting, roadblocks and advocating for harsher consequences for people who harm children, but also the education for parents, because the beautiful thing about this is trafficking and exploitation is preventable. It is 100% preventable if our kids are equipped, if we keep our kids safe, if we're educated on everything from, the rudimentary body safety prevention to not putting our kids in these exploitive environments, to not giving kids smartphones, to training them up to prepare them for the real world. We can prevent all of these atrocities and also intervene with children who need extra resources and help that might not be getting that at home. So, that's my work is accessing those points and making sure that we are equipped to deal with this problem so we can reduce it and not just rescue children from it after it happens.
Yeah. And the third part of that question, which I blasted at you, I'm sorry I did it that way, this is better, is Williamson County. It does have a trafficking problem that I'm not sure many people are aware of. So I'm wondering if you know what you can tell us about it.
Right. Well, what I've noticed, trafficking is everywhere, and it's definitely near major highways where transportation is readily accessible, near major airports and all those things, major events. So big cities is something that really attracts, the demand at a higher rate. So you mentioned the Super Bowl, but really any major sporting events, Titans games, things of that nature are going to attract buyers. And so then the demand grows to meet those buyers in the supply to meet those buyers. So we do have that. We also have a demand of buyers in Williamson County. There's been multiple pastors caught with CSAM, child sexual abuse material, child pornography. Pretty much every month, there's been busts on men trying to buy children, predominantly men. And so there's a pedophilia culture that really, we haven't addressed in our backyard. And it's not just Williamson County, it's really everywhere. And the type of pedophiles, accessing this type of explicit content, abuse content, all have pornography addictions. And so that's another, thing I try to educate on is these men, they embrace pornography thinking it's just a bad habit, like alcohol or something, and they don't realize how it desensitizes them, and that the internet itself will suggest this type of content, and they might not even be aware they're viewing a minor until it gets to that spectrum. And so porn is a public health crisis in America, but in our community, it definitely needs an education response, a cultural response, a church response to this issue, because this is what is the biggest driver of child exploitation is porn.
Yeah, and such big money as well. I think behind guns, it may very well be the second largest or third largest business in America, which is outrageous. And I'm pretty sure the statistics are the majority of trafficking is happening in America, buyers and sellers, which is awful. And then there's a story out of Oregon where a teacher or an assistant principal was just busted for exactly this in our ring. So the people that we look to protect our children, serve and protect our children, unlike, say, the Metro Police who had to rush in and save the day, are the ones we're handing them over to for 8 hours a day, and they're not safe, unfortunately. It used to be a much, much different scenario. And of course, with technology, pornography is everywhere. Kids can't even avoid it. Then they put it into the libraries. We talked about that a little earlier. So these poor kids, it's a 360-degree battle for their souls constantly. And you are fighting the good fight as best as you can as one person or one couple. And we really appreciate that. We are out of time now, unfortunately. I'd love to have you back sometime. Can you just tell everybody where they can go to find out more about you, follow you on social media, any which way to maybe even connect?
Absolutely. And thanks so much for having me, Steve. Yeah, people can go to freedomforever.us. We're the only nonprofit combating all forms of child exploitation, including the medical exploitation via gender ideology. And so I would encourage people to support and get more information there, but they can also follow me on social at Landon Starbuck.
Excellent. Thank you so much. We really appreciate you.
Thanks so much.
I'll write songs about the heartland. My heartland's in Tennessee.
Howdy, y'all. I'm Steve Abramowitz, and we are focusing on the volunteer state and our nation today with always an interesting person making a positive change in our community. Welcome to our People in the News, where I interview people who are lovers of truth. Today, we are talking with Robby Starbuck. Robby's Cuban family fled communism. He first set his sights on the film and music business despite having very little money and no family connections in the industry. He overcame and built one of the most successful production companies in the entertainment business while never taking a business loan or partner. Robby went on to direct Oscar-winning actors and some of the biggest stars in the history of music. As a proud father of three, Robby sees being a father and husband as his greatest blessings in life. His wife, Landon Starbuck, is the founder of the nonprofit Freedom Forever that combats the exploitation of children, episode 71. Check that out. They are the co-producers, and he is the director of the new film, The War on Children, a feature-length documentary about the left's attempt to sexualize and indoctrinate children, out now and boosted by Elon Musk of X. How are you today, Robby?
I'm doing well. Thank you. That was a beautiful intro.
Oh, thank you. I had to abbreviate it because I know we're short for time. Did you treat Landon to a good Valentine's Day last night?
Yes. Yeah, we had a great time. Me and my son ended up making her chocolate strawberries too at the end. So there's still a little bit of Valentine's left because she hasn't eaten those yet. So she'll get some of that today. But yeah, we had a great day with our kids.
Very romantic, beautiful family of yours. That was 112 episodes ago. What took you so long?
You know, it's crazy. Everything going on. We're constantly fighting. I pretty much tried to avoid doing any media except for like right when we're done with the project, and then I'll do like a bunch of it at once, and then I shut it off again for a while, and then we'll do a bunch at once and then shut it off again, because during those interims, like for 6 months, I was just singularly focused on this documentary. That was all I was doing, was making sure that the research was perfect. It was unassailable by the left. They couldn't go after any of the facts or studies or anything that we include in it. And, so it takes a lot of focus, especially when you also have a farm. We've got cows and chickens and children, and it's a lot of stuff. I do it all myself with my wife and kids. So it's like, there's a lot, there's a lot going on.
Well, this time strawberry chocolate, last time I think was a cow. So you've gotten a little bit more conservative, I guess. You and I shared a table at the AFP dinner. So I know you're an activist. So let's get into it. I watched your new movie on Twitter. I think over 1 million other people have watched it by now too. Congratulations. Very powerful. The War on Children. I think it's free until Sunday for folks. Tell us about it and sell the sizzle so everyone goes and watches it. Parents absolutely need to see it.
Yeah, it's incredible. Our trailer's over 30 million views now. And since we just made it free in the past 2 days, 1.5 million people have watched it now. So it's incredible. The reaction, we knew a lot of people would want to see this. We did not expect it to be this reaction that we've gotten. It's definitely just been a God thing, because you can make a great film, but a lot of stuff has to happen that is unexpected. Like, we didn't expect Elon Musk to go and share the film. That was incredible. And we've had, I just actually saw in the news right before we got on, a commissioner in Michigan, some far left activists had shown up and wanted to, derail the commission meeting about all these far left things that they wanted, which includes, they support the transitioning of kids and things along those lines and the sexualization of them. And so this commissioner, he made a homemade sign that says thewaronchildren.com, put it on his laptop and held it up during the entire meeting. So it's had amazing grassroots reach, churches are grabbing it and everything. And from the very beginning, even after the film is no longer free on X this Sunday, we are doing free church screenings and screenings for, local groups who want to share it to a large group of people. So that's something we're doing. People can contact Lindsay at robbystarbuck.com to set up a screening. But in terms of the actual film, nobody had done this overarching look at the war on children where you look at every issue. There's been some micro coverage of a specific issue, like let's look at the libraries, or let's look at the transgender issue, or let's look at, the indoctrination in schools. We did it all. And we connected the pieces of the people behind it, the corporations behind it, the so-called nonprofits that are really far left activists behind it, and how they all intersect, how they all connect, and how this broader war on children is meant to usher in a new era of a modern form of communism. And then also, how do we stop it? It's not just rage entertainment or infotainment. This is a roadmap to how do we change. And there's a companion piece to the documentary, which is if you go to freedomforever.us, you sign up for the email list, they will email you a parenting revolution manual, is what we're calling it. And it has really just an incredible collection of all of the things somebody can do to fight this war and to protect the next generation of kids.
Awesome. Yeah. The medium of film is probably the best venue to do this. You, Dinesh D'Souza, OMG now with O'Keefe, you're doing a great job. You interview a woman in the movie. Yes, I know what a woman is. She's on around the 2 hour and 13-minute mark, named Kelly Paul. 8th and 12th graders, totally depressed, things taken away like hope and faith. She said the kids worship wokeness. What did she mean by that? And the reason I pull that out of the whole movie is I think it is really the overarching umbrella theme of the movie. What did she mean by worship wokeness?
Yeah, so that's Senator Rand Paul's wife. He's obviously also in the film, but Kelly is an amazing writer in her own right. She was an author for The Case Against Socialism. And what she's talking about is that essentially, it's actually something I've written an article about for The Federalist, is that wokeness is a religion. Make no mistake about it. The left is essentially godless at this point, and they've replaced God with wokeness as their religion. If you don't believe me, I mean, just look at that article, look it up, The Federalist, Robby Starbuck, religion. And it'll break down for you. There's penance involved. There's, the church going and kicking people out if they don't adhere to the strict set of principles. There's their form of worship at these rallies and things like that. It all really is a religion. But what does a religion try to do? They try to evangelize. They try to grow their religion, and that's exactly what wokeness is doing through the schools, which are essentially, a place for the woke missionaries to reach out to these children and try to bring them into the woke church. So that's what we're seeing in practice. And, if you really break it down to like the, singular level of one of the most dangerous things, it is that this has turned into a religion. And so you've got these radicalized adults who will stop at nothing, and they will look the other way at absolute horrors to be able to grow this religion of theirs. And, I think it's a really dangerous path. When you look back at history, the times that people are willing to do that, they don't tend to turn out really well.
No. She also said something that I say a lot on this show and disturbs me greatly, quote, medicalized for a lifetime, end quote, as in slave to big pharma. I read the Pfizer PAC report every quarter and see about 99% of politicians funded by Pfizer. The 1% not disclosed in a Swiss bank account. I kid, not 99%, but it's a lot of Dems and Republicans, totally bipartisan, pharma and big tech and kids. You had Rand Paul, like you said in your movie, and Tennessee's William Lamberth. Anyone else in DC or the state of Tennessee willing to help you fight back on this cause? Is Tennessee doing anything with our attorney general, for example, that has teeth in it versus the rest of the country or DC? Tennessee likes its Chamber of Commerce Republicans. Facebook and TikTok are big here with corporate welfare, and the media is mostly liberal.
Yeah, so I would say nationally, tons of support. I mean, legislators from all over the country have reached out, and they've asked for our help with bills, whether it be from, the banning of the sex change mutilation surgeries and hormones that are really destructive. Lifetime, like you said, it's to medicalize these kids for a lifetime and make them permanent patients of the big pharma complex. But they're here in Tennessee, definitely there's some, it's a mixed bag. There's always the people who they think like, oh, it's politics as usual. You take this money, it doesn't mean that they own you. But in reality, I think a lot of people know exactly what the deal is 90% of the time. For myself, even when I ran for office, there really wasn't a ton of pushback until, and this is something really interesting. I tell people, they're always like, can you pinpoint when people had a problem with you? And, there was really not a lot of pushback against me running until I was leading in polls and I declined big pharmaceutical money and all of the medical PACs. Nashville is the healthcare capital of the country. That was, in the words of a lot of different people, a very stupid thing to do. But I feel strongly that people, when they run for office, they shouldn't be owned by BlackRock. They shouldn't be owned by big pharmaceutical companies. It should be the people and, small businesses in your area and people who really have a vested interest in that district that have a say in what's going on. I mean, at the end of the day, you're supposed to be a representative of the people, right? And so, I think that there's way too much influence by these big pharmaceutical companies. I think COVID made that very clear in what they were allowed to get away with. And it's something that we, the people, have to do a better job. If we have a problem with our representation, it's really on us. We have to do a better job. We have to be better about researching who we're voting for, why we're voting for them, what they're doing, what are their money ties, what money are they taking while they're in office, what PACs are really, getting behind them. I think all of that does matter. And you've got to really look hard at it, because at the end of the day, look at that Sam Bankman-Fried, who was basically a scam artist and was buying politicians. He bought people on the left and right. And how many of them have returned the money? Well, almost none of them have. Okay. And that should tell people something. Oftentimes they'll pretend they don't know they're getting this money, but let me tell you, they know where they're getting this money.
Yeah, I don't think we'll be seeing your show on Disney Plus or Netflix anytime soon, but that's their loss, not yours. You and I chose Tennessee for our girls because it was the reddest of red states. We love the American dream that's still alive here, but all 95 counties in Tennessee are experiencing trafficking. Is something unique in Tennessee that makes it particularly vulnerable to our kids?
Well, what's unique is, I don't know that it's totally unique to Tennessee, but it is definitely a driver of why we see trafficking as a big problem here, is we have a lot of interstate here. It goes through the entire state. You have to go through Tennessee pretty much to get through all the major trucking routes, if you're going to go across this part of the country. And, I think that while that can be a good thing economically, it also means that you're a major route for traffickers to take to get to certain places, so a very popular way to drive through, which means, they're never going to turn down money, and they're going to create an operation along the way to make money. And that's exactly what they've done. On a statewide level, what does concern me is there has been some wokeness from certain members of the Knoxville area TBI, where the wokeness has prevented them from doing good. My wife went to the Knoxville TBI and offered to help to try to get them more funding
Tennessee
on
Bureau of Investigations, everybody.
Yes. And I don't want to bastardize the whole org, because there's some amazing TBI agents and things like that. I'm just telling a specific story. My wife wanted to try to help them get more funding for more people to be able to solve the child sexual exploitation and trafficking cases. And they would not talk to her. They actually basically said she's not a values fit for working with TBI. And she didn't want anything from them. She wanted to get them money and advocate for them. Okay. So that they could get more people to fight this problem. And we had TBI agents and, police departments begging us to do this, to try to get them more funding. But when we went to the main office in Knoxville, they literally would not talk to her. So things like that are a problem. Trafficking should not be politicized in that way. It should be, hey, whoever can help, whoever can get even one vote on getting something to happen that will improve this situation, we need to work together. I don't care who you are. I really don't. You could be a total commie, AOC, Bernie Sanders person. I will work with anybody to stop this if they are correct in that one area. So as long as you're on the right page in that one area, I will work with you. And unfortunately, the Knoxville TBI office didn't have that same sort of value standard for fixing this problem. There
terrible.
are a lot of good people working on this, though. I know in Williamson County, our Sheriff Dusty Rhodes, he's cared about this. And, I just talked with Mark Elrod, who's running for sheriff here. He cares about this and making sure that we ramp up and ensure that we do everything we can to stop this type of thing. So I think we've got great people, and, there's some people who choose to politicize things, and, that's really unfortunate. But we've gotten a lot of great bills done. One of the ones going through right now, not specific to trafficking, but William Lamberth, I've been advocating for a long time that we need the death penalty for child rapists. And Lamberth introduced that bill. He's a good friend of ours, and he's been great, helped us in a lot of different ways to do child protection stuff. And this bill, I think, will get passed during this session. And I think we'll make that the law of the land in Tennessee, so that judges can hand that sentence down of death for these absolutely evil individuals who rape children.
Amazing. If we have both illegal for an abortion and illegal to rape a child with the death penalty, Tennessee is going a long way to being the best in the nation for child protection services. I got about 3 minutes left for you. I just wanted to really ask, if you don't mind, Mark Green. He announced he wasn't running for re-election yesterday to Congress. He's chairman of the Homeland Security. Any interest in running again, like you tried and they wouldn't let you 2 years ago in District 5? And what's next for you and the movie? Another movie making or more activism? What's going on?
So that is a very interesting I just found out about this last night, okay, that Mark was retiring. A bunch of people seem to think I had like some heads up on this. I had no idea that he was retiring. And to be perfectly honest with you, the most candid answer I can give is I've been making a movie, releasing a movie now, and I literally have not thought about anything like this in that regard in any sort of serious way. The question is, really the question shouldn't even be, is it a situation where I would run? I think it's very flattering that people in District 7, so many of them have reached out about me running. I think it's really fantastic. It feels like a good validation of all the work we've been doing. However, there's a lot of variables to consider. And, would I be allowed to be on the ballot? That's another question. I really can't even answer that question because, when my case went to the Supreme Court of Tennessee during the last time that this went around, a very vague decision was made that essentially, for any reason, they could decide that they don't want you on the ballot, and for any reason they could pull you. So, I think that's the real question. Would I be even allowed to be on a ballot? I can't answer that myself. So,
okay. Well, I think it's worth
the
a try.
shortest answer is I haven't really thought about it seriously yet, because the movie's been, right in front of me. That's the focus right this second, but there's time to think about it, and we'll see.
Not a lot of time, then I hope you try, because it's worth trying. Especially for other folks who really, it's not fair to say, okay, well, it's this bona fide Republican. You have to have been here for 100 years and paid $50 a year for ever to be on the ballot. It shouldn't be that way. So if you can bust that.
So that's actually a funny thing. That's not even what happened to me. A lot of people think that that's what happened. I had lived here beyond the 3 years. That law they passed didn't affect me at all. That's why we won the state court case where I was initially put back on the ballot. That part wasn't true. I had the most vouching letters in history, here for that type of situation. I had vouching letters from all over the place, from the majority of the counties in the district, and so on and so forth. So I had met all of the standards. That's why they had to appeal to the Supreme Court of Tennessee, which is a court where it's political appointments. And, they made their decision that parties can do whatever they want to do. And so, I respect the Supreme Court made their decision, and that's where they stand on it. Unless a federal court chimes in and overrules that, that's sort of the law of the land. So that's where we're at with it,
All right. Well, I'll be supporting you if you decide to fight. It is 20 minutes after, but I just want to let you have a chance to tell everybody where they can follow you on social media, see your movie, anything else you want to promote. And then I'll have to let you go, unfortunately.
Absolutely. Follow at Robby Starbuck, and that's on every platform, or on Facebook. It's /Robby Starbuck TN, and you can see the movie at thewaronchildren.com. And thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. My wife loved being on with you guys.
Oh, great. I'd love to get you both on one time, maybe live. But thanks again for coming.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. That was fantastic. Welcome to the Steve and Steve segment of our show. Producer Steve, what'd you think of our guest, Robby Starbuck?
That was wonderful.
Lots of buttons to push, I know.
It seems like in the last 2-3 years, just a huge push to get people to understand the problem of child trafficking in general. And it is very interesting. There's several movies that have come out. He's got I've got a figure, because I think this is how things work. It starts coming through the ethos. It just picks it up.
Well, let's play the clip, and then we'll talk.
Yeah, let's do that. Let me get this thing here, and let me play it.
Talk specifically is designed to target young people. That's who their audience is.
Have children died because of social media?
Absolutely.
Have they been trafficked off of social media?
100%.
Have they been sexually exploited off of social media?
Ongoing. Yes.
I'm scrolling on TikTok. I see little kids with TikTok. What are they looking at?
This is what you don't want kids to see. Is that correct?
Exactly.
And again, this is depicting children. This is supposed to be kids.
Well, honestly, I didn't even know that transition from female to male was an option until I was on social media and began being exposed to those type of communities.
You've never seen a 18-month-old masturbating?
No, I haven't. Have you seen any sexually explicit drag shows marketed as all ages for kids that you would denounce or think that are a problem and that you want to distance yourself from?
No.
You know this is wrong.
So, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to end the interview.
They use the word sexualize kids at a young age, or, give me a break.
It just seems like there's no moral, construct at all.
Are kids facing just the absolute worst onslaught of grooming that we've ever seen?
Yes, the entertainment industry is sexualizing children for an agenda.
Your daughter was secretly transitioned at school.
This policy has to do with children as young as 5 all the way through high school.
Penthouse footed the bill to lobby before state boards of education. Yes, Penthouse and Playboy. The history behind this is far darker than most Americans understand.
Yeah, that's powerful, folks.
Yeah, Instagram's the biggest platform for trafficking. We've had a lot of guests on that are in that movie, a lot of Steve and Steve dedicated to that. Riley Gaines, John Amanchukwu, way back in the beginning, Landon Starbuck, of course, now Robby. We care. right? I mean, we care. I left
We
Washington
do.
State because I'm a concerned dad. I'm still a concerned dad. And now my own home state has issues, but it's a national, global issue. It is the number one business in the world, better than drugs and gambling, is trafficking. And there is a market in America, unfortunately. And so it is a
Well,
massive problem. And I just really respect them for taking it on, making a movie about it. Like we
and
had
that,
Dinesh D'Souza talking about the deep state or 22,000 Mules. Like it has to come from a movie
yeah.
maker to get people's attention.
Well, and an interesting little thing is Twitter, now X, is one of the biggest purveyors of porn. It is on there. You can find anything you want on Twitter, on X. And so Elon Musk is allowing this, but at the same time, he's allowing all the other filth to be on there. It's one of the number one platforms. It's a dirty little secret of Twitter, but it is a hub for anybody who wants to have their shows on there. So that
the dirtiest of dirty little secrets is that all technology usually is way more profitable for pornography and gambling
Yep.
than it ever is to watch the newest Disney movie or the cartoon of the day from Nickelodeon or whatever the case may be. And so if it's
You're right.
profitable and it's successful, there's going to be that trace, which is why Facebook allows it and refuses to censor it. If they can find
Facebook,
somebody's
Twitter.
face from January 6th and
Oh.
hand it over to the feds, they can find naked kids. They refuse to do it. So, okay, moving on. This is goodbye for a little while. I'm your host, Steve Abramowitz, editor-in-chief of HeartlandJournal.com. If you like what you hear, please subscribe, even while I'm gone, and pass it around, even in reruns. We only grow with your help, and still ad-free. Back in August. Enjoy the reruns. Maybe off air, we'll get that peace in our time. I'll work on it in Europe. Glory to God. At Heartland Journal, we don't just write about the Heartland, we're part of it. Whether you're in Montana cattle country, next to an Idaho data center in a drought, or from an Ohio manufacturing town, this is your platform. Got a story tip? A perspective we need to hear? We want it. This podcast and website exists because readers like you step up. Help us keep the lights on and the reporting honest. Visit heartlandjournal.com or our Substack, Heartland Journal, and subscribe to our ad-free premium content. Together, we're keeping authentic journalism alive in Middle America. I'm Steve Abramowitz, your host of the Heartland Journal podcast. Thanks for listening.
It's a long way to Nashville from that Napa Valley vine. Put me on a road less traveled. Lord, now I know why. God knew I'd get there in His perfect time.
Heartland Journal Podcast is the media property of heartlandjournal.com, where you can find news stories, commentary, and content serving the heartland of America. Any views or opinions represented on the podcast are personal and belong solely to the creator and do not represent those of the people, institutions, or organizations that the creator may or may not be associated with in professional or personal capacity unless explicitly stated.
Now I write songs about the heartland. My heartland's in Tennessee. Now I write songs about the heartland. My heartland's in Tennessee.